Thank you. Hi, y'all. Welcome back. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We're about to talk about the revolution and talk about the role that music has played. So I just have to minimize my screen so that I can look at my notes at the same time. So welcome, y'all. So first, we're just gonna get right into it and kick it off with some intros. We have a great panel with us today to have this conversation. Super grateful that everyone agreed to join us. So we have Gabriel Teodris, and he's here out of Seattle. We have Marion Hayden, and we have Daniel Pock. So first I'm gonna go through just a little bit of the bios. I was reading them and I was like, oh, I should just read a little bit because folks can read for themselves. But I might just read the whole thing because they're dope as hell. And they're not long. Okay, so Gabriel's a musician, writer, and DJ from South Seattle, South End, stand up, who first made a mark with the group Obscenian Creole and reached an international audience with his critically acclaimed solo debut, Love Work. He has released 10 projects since and set stages on fire all over the map, from the US to Canada to Mexico, Cuba, Ethiopia, and South Africa. Okay, I see you. Often in combination with workshops on creative writing, music history, science fiction, and media literacy. Teodros currently holds the show Early is the name of the show, weekdays from 5 to 7 a.m. Pacific time on KEXP 90.3 FM in Seattle and streaming worldwide at the website. So welcome, Gabriel. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now thanks for being here. I'm gonna introduce y'all to Marion. So Marion is born in Detroit, musician, a crucible of jazz, bassist, educator. Marion is widely recognized as a standard bearer of cultural and artistic legacy. Hayden is a Kresge Fellow and a Jazz Hero Award and a U.S. Congressional Commendation recipient. Marion, we had Deborah White Hunt on yesterday, who's a Kresge Fellow from 2020. So that's awesome. Marion holds faculty positions in music at the University of Michigan and Oakland University. Her ensemble, Legacy, performs original works in the Black American music tradition, with special emphasis on narrative compositions. Sorry, there's a crazy dog next door barking. If y'all hear it, if you see that dog come in here and bite me, somebody save me, okay? Because I'm scared of him. Hayden is also a co-founder of the Grammy-nominated women-led ensemble Straight Ahead, and current studio projects include Highland Park, which is a neighborhood in Detroit, City of Ogun, and Ocean, notes on Phyllis Wheatley. Welcome, Marion.
Thank you so much. Thank you, SES. Thank you, Curtis.
Thank you so much for being here. And then last but not least, my bro, Daniel Pock. Pock is a singer-songwriter born and raised on the island of Oahu. The Seattle Weekly describes his voice as sounding like it was birthed right in the heart of New Orleans, with enough jazz heart to lead a Jamaican revolution of peace and love. As co-founder and executive director of Totem Star, a nonprofit record label that supports a diverse community of young recording artists, a big part of his life's work is to ensure that young people have a safe, encouraging, and inclusive space to create music, learn life skills, and build community. What up, Pot? Thank you so much for joining us. I saw you come off mute. You're gonna clap in real life. Thank you, because we don't get the claps in the visual world. I mean, in the virtual world. Okay, no. So what we're gonna do today, y'all, we're gonna get into some conversation, but first, we wanna have some videos from each person. I just wanted you to meet who's with us today, who's blessing us with their time, and then we're just gonna go into the videos. So the first one is a video from Gabriel.
Back up, we want freedom, freedom. All these racist ass cops, we don't need them, need them. Back up, we want freedom, freedom. All these racist ass cops, we don't need them, need them.
Whose lives matter?
Black lives matter.
Whose lives
Matter.
Black Lives Matter.
I know how you watch as you grow older, literally. It's not a figure of speech. The corpses of your brothers and your sisters pile up around you, and after anything they have done, when you try to stand up and look the world in the face like you had a right to be here, you have attacked the entire power structure of the Western world.
We get hunted in the streets openly by police. Prison is an industry and they don't want us to speak free. Mainstream promoters only feed you that group think. Poisonous activities that lands you in clink clink. I'm indie as I wanna be and here to give you all of me. Will offer no apologies for all the strength I'm honoring and all the ways the calling brings. My AR likes to raise a light in the darkest part of the night before we wake a sleeping giant. Rising up is inevitable. Everything changes but pray the planet stays habitable. I'm from a jungle that's getting clear cut fast. Since I rap typecast as a real wildcat, a lion in fact, from a horn in the east. I grew up with some beasts, and I can show you some things, but you gon' have to learn how to act in my habitat. You don't have the land where you standing at, it has you. This balance has to stay true. Greeny jungle, wilderness where the wild things are. A beast gon' be a beast, so be who you are. A lion with a horn, the hunted with a song. The places you get broken, other places you get strong. Greeny jungle, wilderness where the wild things are. A beast gon' be a beast, so be who you are. A lion with a horn, the hunted with a song. The places you get broken, other places you get strong.
Green jungle, give me what you cannot see is pearl, strap the muzzle. Give you verbal fetters, pressure you to hustle. Zero discussions about your well-being, sell dreaming, affirmation junkie start beaming. Been back for a pat on the back and lost coins. Dish out Diwali clapping for the ratchets and lost boys. Conversation deployed to still kill and destroy an entire generation through disconnect techie toys. Push poverty on boys, make your money look bigger, but the mindset is still the same. The math harder to figure when you bit a bigger picture. No bread with hard liquor, crash cars quicker than quick talkers. A city slick, yeah, delay on the picture. No pitching in 2020. They got you jocking, smoking mirrors, even though it's funny, but you worship money, so you give it glory on your knees. But Free never says thank you. You all agree.
Greeny jungle, wilderness where the wild things are. A beast gon' be a beast, so be who you are. A lion with a horn, the hunted with a song. The places you get broken, other places you get strong. Greeny jungle, wilderness where the wild things are. A beast gon' be a beast, so be who you are. A lion with a horn, the hunted with a song. The places you get broken, other places you get strong. I know who I am and I know how I am seen. No matter what I do, they gon' be two different things. So I can't let a gaze ruin any of my days. They might see me as a hunter, they might see me as prey. Found out how to survive without playing their games. If anything is constant in the jungle, it's change. The knowledge in my body reacts faster than my brain. Instinct, intuition is kinda hard to explain. Scruffy chin, lion mane, regal but never tame. Symbol of an empire that I never once claimed. Greeny jungle, stumble through forbidden lands where spirits walk and hold you with an open hand. People worship but fear what they do not understand. The wilderness taught me how to be who I am, and I fell hard before I learned how to stand. If you wanna live here, learn to listen to the land. Greeny jungle, wilderness where the wild things are. A beast gon' be a beast, so be who you are. A lion with a horn, the hunted with a song. The places you get broken, other places you get strong. Greeny jungle, wilderness where the wild things are. A beast gon' be a beast, so be who you are. A lion with a horn, the hunted with a song. The places you get broken, other places you get strong.
That's so bomb. So Gabriel, when we talked earlier when we were prepping for this, you gave some context on that video.
Yeah,
Can you tell us a little bit about what the setup was?
for sure. So, yeah, I picked that song for this panel in particular because I felt like it was a good example of music and movement work moving hand in hand, right? So the background on that is it was 2015 when we filmed that video. I had been basically drawn out to the streets like a lot of us were in the wake of Mike Brown being murdered, followed by Eric Garner, Sandra Bland. And there was that year, similar to last summer, just constant protests, like almost every week, sometimes several nights a week. And the energy was like it was super active, right? It was everywhere. It was a lot of young people. It was a lot of first time organizers. At that point, I definitely felt a little bit like a older person who was learning a lot from younger organizers and younger artists, but nonetheless, like I was there when a lot of coalitions were formed. There were meetings that were happening in the living room to my house, and that music video was basically the result of a couple organizers and activists asking. It was a request. Can you show up to this next protest where there's going to be a sanctioned march? We want you to film, and there's going to be an unsanctioned march that we want you to film. And we really need some high quality cameras to be there, because we know these police have been acting a fool like every week. And we basically want some of this to be captured. You know what I mean? And what happened, just like it was predicted, the police did turn up on the crowd, and some people that weren't even really involved ended up getting tear gas and pepper sprayed in the face. The most high profile of those being the Garfield high school teacher, Jesse Hagopian. There's a scene right in the beginning of the video. He actually was able to sue the police and win a lawsuit using the footage from our music video as the evidence. So, and he took the proceeds from winning that lawsuit to basically start a fund for younger organizers and artists coming out of Garfield High School. So it's definitely a moment. There's so many lessons in it. Like, I haven't even watched the video in a long time, so I'm having like all these memories and lessons and even contradictions and failures and all those kind of things like coming up, like just in seeing all the faces together in that video. But there's a lot of experience and a lot of lessons to unpack from that time that are still relevant now. And I'm sure we'll get into more of it, you know, as the conversation goes on. But yeah, that's kind of the background of that video.
Thank you so much. It's tight. I mean, I love seeing fam in the video too. Like Doomy, I've known Doomy since we were little. I saw Lulu, Karen, you know, I love that. And also Nikita was on yesterday with Creative Justice, and they had shared how when they went to the Capitol to kind of film some stuff for a video, for a music video, and then knowing who they are, they were like, oh, you know, we don't know, but it's like, oh, it's for a project for school, or, you know, or something. I'm like, oh, come right in. And you know, with you all like there, we're filming a music video, but then you can use the footage, right, to hold the police accountable.
Yeah.
Genius. Thank you so much. So we're gonna come back. We're gonna check out Marion's video. Thanks, Gabriel.
Sandra Bland. We came to make the noise for George Floyd. We need justice to be real for Philando Castile. We want justice. We need 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 justice. We want it, y'all. We need
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Just amazing. I mean, and just to see a woman doing it, you know. Marion, can you share a little bit about what that video was, like the jazz festival, and any context you can set for us?
Yes. Well, first of all, it's just such a pleasure to be on this beautiful chat tonight with everyone. I just can't tell you how inspiring it is. Your work was so very inspiring to me. I just can't tell you, Gabriel, just so lovely. So, for context, Detroit is one of the crucibles of Black music in the world. It is a town that is over 80% Black. And it is a place where all the music forms that Black people have originated are alive and growing and thriving across generations. And so it is, and particularly jazz is one of the great traditions of Detroit. Just so powerful. So many great men and hugely powerful and influential women have come through the Detroit jazz legacy in jazz. And so our jazz festival is about maybe 40 years old now. It's been around for a good while. And last year they decided, as opposed to not having it, that they would go completely live stream. So what you saw was my band of just musicians that are just so dear to me, generating a whole lot of energy at like 11 o'clock in the morning in an empty room with some fantastic camera technicians and sound technicians, and just really trying to stir it up as much as possible, and kind of make it happen. That piece is really near and dear to me. It was written by a man named Donald Walden, who was one of my mentors in Detroit. He was a saxophonist, composer, and educator. And Donald did quite a bit of traveling in his life. He was also someone who grew up in Detroit. And so he found that when he traveled to South Africa, Soweto, that the communities there reminded him so much of the communities in Detroit, which is a really bad thing for both of our communities, that they should not be, that that children and people should be not be living well, and that's something we can talk about further. And so he wrote that piece called Soweto, Detroit, for the children of all the townships. So you can hear some of the chorus that my wonderful vocalist sang, called "The Children of All the Townships demand that we be free," right? And when I was working on this, which we did a lot of rehearsing in my backyard last summer, because that was an appropriate place to rehearse. I went to to a big store and Walmart and bought a bunch of tents, and we just jammed out there at the collard greens and my black eyed peas that were out there growing. And and so I said, well, when we get to the end, I'd like you to be expansive and talk about all the different townships, because all these townships in the U.S. are struggling, and the young folks, Black folks, are being gunned down the street. And so that was my great vocalist, Keandra May, who was actually one of my former students. They're actually they're actually two students of mine. It's a multi-generational band. So the gentleman on piano is one of my former students from University of Michigan, and the drummer is not only a student of mine but also is my youngest son, Tariq Gardner, and he's the drummer. And then the horn section are kind of more of our legacy players from Detroit. Some people that I've just known for many years who are just fantastic. So one of the things we really also try to do in Detroit is a lot of our efforts are really very much intergenerational, because as it should be in Black music, the music is best transmitted from person to person, and the mentor protege griot, the whole griot foundation, is something that I think we really take very seriously here. So so we do a lot of ensembles in which we always try to incorporate the young folks that are coming up, and their vision, and make sure that that infuses so much life and into the music, and make sure that the music has some impetus to continue on. That this is not museum music that we're engaged in. This is a living music with a living process, a living. It has a life. It continues to reflect on things as they are changing, and so many things that really have not changed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So that's what you saw. So I really love that band a lot. So I'm a working musician. I try also to try to find the different places to perform, and certainly to use that band as one of my creative outlets for great music, and to speak to the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. And thank you for just setting the scene for us. All I keep thinking about are your collards and Black Eyed Peas. I'm wondering what your harvest was like that year, because my grandmother used to be in the garden singing, I have to sing to my vegetables. And so off of that music,
I actually have some
was it in abundance?
That was a great summer. As a matter of fact, I think I might have even had that. That was one of my image pictures, but not to get, but yes, my yard was banging last year. Now this year, not so much. Last year, really good.
You got to get out there and play some more.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So now we're going to go to Pac and see a video from him and chat a little bit, and then we're going to go into questions with everyone. So here we go.
Goes to this nonprofit that's created a safe and empowering second home for young people in our area. If you talk to any songwriter, they want to tell stories through their music, and in some cases make a difference through their words. But one local musician is taking things a step further, and that's why he's our game changer. So meet Daniel Pac and his Totem Star.
If you're leaving, I'll still be here. Just better find me, call me. Don't you hesitate to ring me somebody. If you're leaving.
I'm running for them, I'm running for my kids, their generation.
Call me.
But what Daniel Pac writes about, he gets to see.
Hoping one day we'd find a way out.
Not just a DJ, I'm also a hip-hop artist and spoken word poet too.
It's just wonderful to see all these young people from all over the city, all of the regions, across neighborhoods, coming together and just making beautiful music together.
Hi, I'm Charmaine. I've been coming to Totem Star for about 3 years. You have to come in with a mentality of you want to get better. And if you want to get better, then they help you with that.
Young people come from all over the city, the region. I mean, we have young artists come from as far north as Everett, from as far south as Burien, Kent, Tacoma.
Totem Star is often described as a creative sanctuary for young people who don't have access to the arts, founded by Pac and Thaddeus Turner.
I feel like that is a big reason why Totem Star exists, to fill that gap in arts education. any given time in this Studio A, there might be a vocal recording session on our mic. In the other room in Studio B, there might be 3 or 4 different beat makers, you know, making beats in Logic or FL Studio. Out in the hall, there might be a couple songwriters with guitars working on a song. Up in the control booth, one of our DJs might be like getting his tracks ready for his next set.
But in the process, something else is happening.
Like when I came in here, I was like really shy, and like getting to like know other people that have like the same interest as me, like in music and stuff, like helped me like be more outgoing and like not be scared to show my work.
They've helped keep that mindset of like where I'm going and not losing it, especially in times where you can doubt yourself. This song is called Home. It's about being incarcerated in your own home, whether that's like a physical place or an emotional place. Being stuck in a place that you don't want to, whether that's like depression or like abuse. Golden Star is all about spreading messages throughout the world that will help other people and bring light to other people's lives.
And from their humble space in West Seattle, it's happening. From one voice to many others.
My highest hope for any young person that comes through Totem Star
We all need somebody.
is just to really embrace who they are as an individual, to never try to hide who they are. You know, to have that ability to really go through self-discovery, self-transformation, and build a strong community that respects them for who they are, what their identity is, what they're trying to say, what they've been through.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, about being the game changer and just really, I was thinking about Totem Star, and particularly during, you know, COVID, the pandemic, like how have y'all been doing, and are you able to, how are you working with kids virtually and everything?
You know, COVID-19 really changed the game for us. Before COVID-19, we would meet in that space, and we've been in that space since 2013. The 3 years prior to that, we were literally a studio in a suitcase. Thaddeus Turner, the other co-founder, he's the musical director for Digable Planets. We literally drove around town, from the Boys and Girls Club to the downtown YMCA to Rainier Esquire Club to the Northwest African American Museum, down to Youth Source and Renton. And we'd pack our whole studio in a suitcase. That was in 2010. So we just celebrated our 11th birthday in July. And really, we got our start working with young people coming out of juvie. We got our first Juvenile Rehabilitation Administration asked us, they said, hey, you know, would you guys be interested in spending 240 hours with some young people that are young men just being released from juvie? And we're like, of course, you know. And so we built some amazing relationships with them over the course of like 6 to 8 weeks. And it was really interesting because I think a lot of what Totem Star has to do is about celebrating people's differences, like the diversity of the young people that come through our door. It's a revolving door, right? It's just word of mouth. Young people come from all over. In the last 11 years, we've worked with over 3,500 different artists from all over the Seattle area and beyond. But one of the participants in the first program at Rainier Community Center, Antoine Page, he was a star running back at Rainier Beach High School. In his like little testimonial after the program was done, he wrote, you know, when I first came to this program, I saw Thaddeus and I saw Pac, and I was like, a Black and an Asian? This just ain't gonna work. And, you know, and then he went on to say, but I was wrong. And Pac and Thaddeus, they taught me a lot about, you know, why we gotta, you know, be more human, and we gotta accept people's differences. And they taught me a lot about life, and I see the world in a different way. So, you know, that's the kind of transformation that can happen. You know, we always encourage young people to bring their best self, their worst self, and every self in between, because we all, you know, our vibe changes from day to day, but we all got to be loving and caring and, you know, not shaming, you know, not canceling everybody, you know. And so it's been a trip. And I guess going back to your question on COVID, once our studio shut down on March 9th, I remember the date, we immediately went into remote sessions, and that was incredibly productive. I mean, we'd meet on Zoom. We created a whole scheduling app that our artists could log into and schedule their own sessions, and it was really productive. Two artists released full-length albums that were completely produced during the pandemic. Two of our artists were part of Sound Off 2021 or 2020 and 2021, which is the sort of the, Mopop is a big music museum here in the Pacific Northwest, and they do this annual sort of battle of the bands kind of deal. And we had a couple artists featured on that. We did a lot of sync licensing with Seattle Public Schools, where we would essentially license our artists' recorded music to Seattle Public Schools to do like art shows and online professional development trainings for their teachers. And so we were able to really monetize in our best way our artists' music to get them paid. And so that was really, really a great thing that we discovered through the pandemic and, operating remotely. We also, in the pandemic, I would say the brightest shining light that we did was we finally established what we call the Totem Star Leadership Collective. It's legally an advisory committee to our board of directors comprised of all of our artists, and they meet once a month, and they advise our board and our staff on things like policy, procedures, programming, partnerships. Every decision goes through them. So really trying to practice transparent decision making in the process. So again, on the outside, we look like a music production, performance. We book our artists for gigs. In fact, there's a big Welcome Back Seattle, show these the last couple of weeks, and we have 10 artists on stage, and that's really awesome. In fact, some of our artists get to open for Diggable Planets this Sunday at Westlake Park, which is known to be a place where a lot of rallies happen, a lot of political rallies happen. So that's really awesome. But yeah, it's just been great, getting our artists in a community with each other. And a really exciting thing right now is we're actually building a new studio in partnership with the city at the historic King Street Station. So that's a really big project that we're taking on, really building art space equitably for the arts and cultural sector, increasing the value proposition of arts and culture, and really championing the voices of young people. So that's really what Totem Star is all about. It's a pleasure to be here. Much love to you and the Seattle Cree Summit, Cece.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Pac. So y'all, we're gonna transition into bring everybody to the stage and have some conversation. And we're gonna just have a chat about some things. Thank you so much for getting everyone back here. There we go. Okay, and Pac, for some of these questions, I know this is hard for you, but you're gonna answer as an artist. So you might have to talk about yourself.
I can do that. I can do that.
Just a little bit. Okay. Okay, so I think, and y'all out there in the audience, please throw some questions in the chat. I'll be watching the chat as best as I can, trying to multitask a little bit. But I think for the first question, and we'll start with you, Gabriel, is really what inspires you to do the work that you're doing? So when did you start? When did you know this was something you needed to do? And what continues to inspire you?
Yeah. Oh man, I started when I was 15 years old. So that's back in 1996. I'm dating myself. And to be honest, like a lot, for me personally, it had everything to do with Tupac dying, I'll try to tell a shortened version of the story. So Tupac died, he got shot. It was his second time. And there was that 7-day period after he got shot and before he passed away. In my family, me and my mother, we share a lot of we share about our dreams a lot, and we take like real life advice from our dreams. So I had this dream after Tupac was shot, but before he passed. And in the dream, there was like this subway tunnel and the windows had pure light and there was light bleeding through all the windows. And I understood it was like a train platform and the train was to the other side. Once you get on the train and go to the other side, there's no coming back. And in my dream, I knew I was going to find Tupac because he was waiting for his train, but he hadn't boarded it yet. So I grabbed his hand and I said, Pac, like, you're the one that's supposed to lead us to our liberation. Like, at that time period, Seattle's a very segregated city, despite what they tell you, especially at that time. The South End and the Central District were literally at war with each other. I lived in one neighborhood and went to school in the other. It often felt like, I didn't feel like I was going to live to see 18. I didn't think I was going to live to see 21. Tupac was one of few unifiers. Like literally, like everybody loved this person and listened to his music. And since he came up under the Black Panthers, he always infused like love for the people and liberation inside of his music, So in my 15-year-old mind, I felt like, Pac, you're the one supposed to lead us to our liberation, and I grabbed his hand in my dream and I told him that. And in my dream, he smiled and he shook his head and said, "It's on you now." And the next morning, this person that my mom was dating at the time came into the room and said, "Did you hear Tupac just died?" And all I heard in my head was, "It's on you now." So for me, that was a moment because I was writing rhymes already, but not just keeping them to myself. I wasn't very confident, but I really took it to heart, 6 months later, ironically, we ended up moving to Las Vegas, which is a city where Pac died. And it was in Las Vegas that I was 17 by that point. I started performing in front of people, started doing park jams, started like connecting with other artists. And for me, everything kind of took off from there. I dropped out of high school at 18, came back to Seattle. It's a long story here. But when I came back to Seattle, I was 18. It was 1999. I say that because WTO protests in Seattle was 1999 as well. And my first group was basically formed out of ciphers, freestyle sessions that would happen at Westlake Center. And it was this band called 500 Years. We called ourselves an artistic rebuttal to the last 5 centuries of oppression and colonization. All the MCs were like 18 years old. This is 1999, like everyone's doing teach-ins about anti-globalization. The Seattle Independent Media Center is just starting, which became a movement of independent centers all over the country. And here we are, like a group of young kids of color who are rapping about politics in the center of all of it. So that was kind of my introduction to music, community, organizing, and activism and education. And it all happened for me at the same time. And from there, it's like, I've always thought of it as intertwined, including the education piece, because, I mentioned dropping out of high school. I went to 6 high schools. I was at Garfield in Seattle for the longest, which was my freshman and part of my sophomore year. Then I went to 5 different high schools in Vegas before I dropped out. I loved education. I'm somebody that I would skip classes if I felt like my education was being, or my intelligence was being insulted. I would skip classes to go to the library and teach myself, So when I was 18, I was a kid, I was baby faced. People thought I was 12. They started asking me to come in and like lead workshops. So I really got into the hip hop education thing through that. And yeah, it's been a lifetime now, So that's my X-Men origin story.
Damn, I love it. I love it. Thank you. Dang, love it. Okay, Marion, same question for you.
Wow, mine was not nearly as I feel. That was a drama. I was ready to fill in on that one there.
I was like, dang. And with Talk too, like Talk is my favorite. So if you hear any Tupac on any of the musical breaks, I know sometimes maybe it's not appropriate. I don't know, but those are my jams.
Yeah, that was amazing. I would just say that probably for me, as I said, this Detroit is a city that has been about a lot of independent Black artists engaged in just all kinds of interdisciplinary programming that is community based and grassroots, from the grassroots. This is a city that really has probably had everything happen to it, from disinvestment, radical and violent disinvestment, and now we are experiencing gentrification, and um, and even through it all, I feel that what I usually like to say is that if you do the flyby version, where you just kind of drive down the street from Detroit, you will not know this. You will not know this community. You got to turn into you got to make a turn down the street, and you got to go further than what they call ruin porn. That's what happens. That's what violent disinvestment looks like. Ruin porn. That's where somebody stops paying for a building, lets it catch on fire, and then leaves it in your neighborhood to rot right in front of you. So that's violent disinvestment. There's just regular old disinvestment, then there's violent disinvestment. That's we've been the subject of that here for quite a while. But even through it all, this cultural community is just super happy, and it's a cultural community that not only has community artists such as myself that have some integration into some of the institutions, but it also includes people that are that really went all the way, got terminal academic degrees, but are still like very much ensconced into our community, culturally. And so my upbringing here was learning music from my community elders when I was about 13 years old, and having them very much embrace my love of the music. I was really glad that my parents were both folks that never said no. They never heard the world girls don't do such and such. That was never something that was uttered in my house. So the fact that I would choose an instrument that looked like that was definitely bigger than I was at the age at when I tried to play at 9, and even at 12, it's still way bigger than I. Nobody said, "Nah, you're not doing that." They just said, "Okay, we're going to go get you one, and then we're going to throw you in a program and let you let you engage with some other young people that love it the way you obviously do." And so, because of that, I mean, we have places here, such as a place called an organization called Tribe Records. So I mean, Tribe Records, independent record company, a publishing company. They had a newspaper back in the day when that was what things that people did. Also, also production, a production company. They employed artists, graphic people, photographers. So that's the legacy that I come from here in Detroit. And so for me right now, my legacy, what I try to do now is to try to keep that going. I have a couple of youth programs that I teach for that are official, and then most of us in the community teach unofficially. So in other words, you can come to my house, and anytime there might be some musicians rehearsing in my studio, also known as the living room, that happens to have a drum kit, a piano, and 6 music stands and a PA system in it. I'm trying to do something about that right now. Keep telling my husband I really want an actual living room at some point. Right now, that's what's going on. Right now, this is the production house. And if you go online, there's definitely some videos that also were filmed in as I like to call my tiny desk concert. Yeah, we got that time. We got a tiny living room concert going on right here at the crib, right around the corner. And but I just think that I've always felt that as much as great as the institutions are, that to be honest, the small community organic institutions are the ones that really actually continue to feed the culture. Then you have larger commercial entities that may be able to exploit that, but at the ground level, where it really goes down, where people come, they can be themselves, where somebody welcomes them in, where you find out that somebody needs a few $100s for a horn. A lot of times there's really no place to get that, except that that they come to the community and say, "Hey, so and so's horn got damaged in a car accident. They need some support for this." And somehow or another, amazingly, a new horn will show up, and then that other horn will get repaired. And somebody says so and so is getting ready to go to college, and they're going to they need to have a concert, so they can help with that. And so there's a concert, a church will give a concert, and then as usual the community will continue to embrace and bring that. So that's the kind of community that I come from here, and we have to really fight to keep it. It's not an easy thing. You have to fight to keep that thing going. It's not it doesn't happen by itself. Every generation has to be welcomed in and then modeled the kind of behavior that we expect them to extend to the folks coming up, right? So there's always somebody coming up under you, right? Even my youngest son, who's 25, has a student, right, that he's been working with, and my oldest son is 31, and there are people that he is already mentoring. So you don't have to be at a certain age for this thing to be a part of you, and that you continue to bring people in. And in fact, one of the things I like, my prized possessions is this little base behind us. And there's a lot of names on there, which I'm sure you probably cannot read. But what it does is represent the jazz bass legacy in Detroit, which is really very deep and profound in terms of the music. I mean, it includes a lot of names which folks probably will not know. But if you look up people like Ron Carter, who was one of our living legends of the music, one of the most recorded bass players in the history of jazz, is from our community. Paul Chambers, who was one of the seminal players in the development of jazz. That these are people that grew up here, and so the legacy here is really, really deep and rich. And also it does include women such as the great Jerry Allen, who is a fantastic pianist, Alice Coltrane, who many people may or may not know, but Alice Coltrane was from here. Dorothy Ashby, who was one of the people that put jazz harp on the map, Afro harp, and some of you all that are record collectors probably know Afro harping, one of her early records. These are our folks that came through this legacy. So I will stop now, but just a lot. There's a lot to unpack coming from.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I love it. There were so many things you said. I was like, boom, boom. Like, it just, y'all, if you haven't been to Detroit, you need to go. You need to get out the car. You need to walk around, talk to people. When you feel the energy of that city, I visited one time, and now my whole family lives there. Just off of it, I was like, how about we move? And it was something about moving to Detroit from Seattle because of kind of the oppressive state segregation in Seattle. That was like, my son always loved music, but never thought of himself as a musician. And he would save his money and started buying instruments. So our living room, I got guitar stands, he's got the bass, he's got a talk box in the window, a keyboard. I'm like, you got a trumpet now? So it's something about the energy of that city that says you're about to be great. Like, you got to be great. You don't have a choice. Being in the heat is just what you're gonna do. So I love that. I'm sure our living rooms look the same. And the other thing I just wanted to note too, before Pat answers this question, when I work in philanthropy, whenever we talk about philanthropy with people in the funding world, they act like philanthropy is hard, and it's not. We've been doing this shit for generations. So you just sharing the stories about, like the trumpet got damaged in a car accident, we're gonna figure out how to get you a new one, or the church is gonna hold a concert for this. So really, when we talk about funding and philanthropy, shit ain't that hard. It's about showing up for a community, and the literal translation of the word philanthropy is love of your fellow human. So please just remember that and start calling out funders too, about how they act like it's real and it's hard, because it's not. Facilitating the return of resources. We've been doing it for years. So thank you for that. For years. It's just in our DNA, it's in our bodies. So Pop, what inspires you, man?
I guess before I get into this, Marion, I totally was having a moment when you're describing your living room, because my living room looks exactly the same. For the longest time, my wife's been trying to get me to move the drum kit and the Ampeg 4x10 stack. And it's like, I'm sorry, babe, but I got to make music with the boys. They got to learn about this culture.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, so I'm right here in the bedroom that I grew up in on Oahu as a child. This was the bedroom I shared with my brother when we were kids. I'm visiting my family for my sister's wedding and my grandma's memorial. But I learned music in this house. My dad was my first teacher. He was a bebop piano player. I would be brushing my teeth in the bathroom next door, and there'd be Thelonious Monk and Duke Ellington quotes pasted on top of the mirror. And I mean, that's kind of how I grew up. I grew up with pictures of Che and Malcolm X and Mao in my house. You know, it was a pretty radical house I grew up in, coming from a family of activists. My mom and dad, now that they're retired, have all the time in the world to engage in the movement, and they're out there on the streets. They're doing the things. My mom actually is on the Big Island. She went to visit the Mauna because a lot of the kupuna are having a court case for being arrested, being kupuna. You know, working up, you know, you guys, maybe that's another story for another time. But yeah, as a young kid, I was always around music. My dad was my piano teacher. When I was in second grade, we learned ukulele in school. By the time I was 13, I discovered acoustic guitar and alto saxophones. I was playing saxophone in class, but I was playing acoustic guitar and learning like Redemption Song. You know, Bob Marley became a huge influence in my life. Reggae is very, very strong and prominent in the islands. And so as a young kid, you know, we'd sing all the songs off the radio. There's a tradition in Hawaii called kani kapila, and it just means jamming. On any given weekend when I was in high school, all of us that played instruments would grab our ukulele, our guitar, pair of bongos, and we'd basically go to whatever beach had the least amount of police activity. And we would just play music to the pale moonlight, waves crashing, palm trees swaying, like seriously, sand under our toes. And the thing about it, it wasn't just a couple people singing and everybody listening. Everybody was singing. Nobody was like singing and there's people on the side like texting and stuff. No, it was like everybody was engaged in the music making kind of thing. And that's how I grew up. So when I came to Seattle to go to University of Washington, we brought that kani kapila aspect with me. I brought my ukulele, I carried it on the plane, instantly connected with a community of musicians that were kind of transplanted in Seattle from Hawaii, started my first band. I was in engineering school at the time because my counselor told me I should do something like that. But I quickly decided that even though I was going to graduate with an engineering degree, I was going to start gigging as soon as I graduated, which I did. Playing music, gigging all over Seattle. Crazy thing is, I discovered that through that time, that kind of that from when I was 22 to 25, I realized it was the first time in my life where I never had structure. I never had schooling. I never had that institution like kind of structuring my life. I realized in that moment that the best use of my life was to help the next generation. And so that's when I discovered the service board. And Cece, I know you know the service board, but basically it's a nonprofit in Seattle that takes young people to do community service, mentorship, and then they take them snowboarding. I realized that young people didn't have access to music. So I had this whole studio in my basement. So I would literally pack up my studio, take it to Youngstown, shout out E-Bells, who's on this call, I see you. And we'd set up the whole room and we would just jam every Saturday for 5 hours, from 12 to 5, every Saturday for 2 years. Never got paid, just did it because that was the right thing to do because young people needed music. During that time, really explored like my purpose, and TSB, which we call it affectionately Service Board TSB, inspired me to release my first album to help fundraise money for TSB. And it was because of releasing that album and being encouraged that it was almost like I found my voice through working with young people. And really what it led to was some pretty amazing things. I can finally, as a young person growing up in Hawaii, listening to reggae music and having reggae music be my heartbeat, I would never have imagined that I would have been able to share the stage with Bob Marley's original band, the Wailers, with Steel Pulse, Sly and Robbie, Third World, Toots and the Maytals. I mean, it's just like I've been able to hang out with them and learn about their, Jamaican culture. And that was really a gift, and I'll always share that. And so because of all those amazing musical, memories and experiences, I just thought, when I met Thaddeus Turner, who now is like I said earlier, he's the music director for Diggable Planets. We got that call to start Totem Star. And that was in a lot of ways, the universe telling us, this is what we need you to do in this moment. And we've been doing it for 11 years. And through those 11 years, I've had additional amazing, musical experiences, getting to know the generosity of people that are really, I guess you could say, popular in the Northwest, like folks like members of Pearl Jam have supported Totem Star. Brandy Carlisle has supported Totem Star. One of the biggest players on our team right now who's helping us design our new studio and move into our new space at King Street Station is Sir Mix-a-Lot. It's just like he tells this amazing story about how he and Thaddeus both grew up right there in the CD. Mick said, I used to grow up in apartments on 19th and Yesler. I'd go downstairs and I'd see the Black Panthers out on the street. And I'd be like, Mama, I want to be like them. And they would come to me and say, no, Anthony, we don't want you to be us. That's why we're us, so that you can, have other opportunities. But it was, Mix will say, like Rico Benbury was that mentor to him. That was the same thing as what he sees Totem Star doing for all these young people, saying, hey, Anthony, get off the streets. After you DJ at the Boys and Girls Club, don't go on the streets. Come back to my studio. I'll teach you everything that I know, because you have way too much talent for it to get wasted out there in the streets. And so, we've been able to really listen to the universe telling us that this is what we have to do. And Totem Star has been growing for 11 years and, we're still going strong. And, we still have so much history to write. And so, it's just it's a blessing. It's an honor, and to serve the community. And I think that's the best use of life in a lot of ways. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. So grateful for you. My kids just love Pac. This has been awesome. So we have 2 minutes, and I want to honor Charles's question in the chat. So that's going to be our final question. We are going to put the Zoom link to the recap and the call to action, which is happening right after this at 4:15 Pacific time, 7:15 East Coast time. So I'm going to be quiet, but the question is, how do you think music ed is evolving in today's time versus music performance? So music ed versus performance. And are you seeing non-artivists show more or less support for the arts in comparison to the last century? And you each get about 28 seconds to answer, actually, because I talk too much.
Go for it, Pod.
Gabriel? You guys using the time.
I'll just say real quick, music performance and supporting music performance is really what music ed is about. Totem Star attracts songwriters who don't believe that they're songwriters. They show up with composition books full of lyrics. They show up with a few guitar chords, but they always say, but I'm not a musician. I'm not a songwriter. But all they gotta do is be encouraged and be like, no, you really are, because all that stuff in your composition book, that's what the universe needs right now. That's what our community needs. And then now we have young people waking up in the morning, like sending us lyrics and sending us their latest rough. Like, I just woke up. You know what I mean? Like they really believe that that's who they are, and that's so important to really encourage them to find that true identity as a artist, an artivist, activist, whatever it might be.
Thank you. Thanks, Pod. So now, everyone, I just need one word from you on what's in the future. One word for you from each of you.
Space. Physical space.
Marianne?
I think the future holds much more activism, and more of that.
I know I'm in Hawaii, so the first word I think of is aloha, because aloha embodies so much, but I think aloha also refers to solidarity.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all. This was hella dope. I knew we were just gonna talk and then that was gonna be it. People were, oh, you got your question? I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna get there. So this was amazing. I thank each of you so much for showing up for the Seattle Equity Summit, for just answering the call when we reached out and chased you down or whatever, if we didn't know you or not. Just appreciate y'all so much, and just happy to be with them. And we are gonna go to the closing now. The link is in the chat, everyone. So click that link and join us for the call to action and close out. And then we're gonna have a DJ for a little bit, DJ Carmen Spin Diego. So please join us and check it out. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Cece. Good to see you.
You too.
Thank you. Thank
you.
Appreciate it. Both my brothers and CC. Great, beautiful.
So good.
Today. Thank
So
you
good
so
to meet
much.
you, Marion. I hope we get to connect in the future too.
I hope
Yes.
that would be lovely. Tell you if you're tell you Bebop Dad, I'm already a fan. Okay.
I'll let him know. But again, I love you, man.
I love you too, Pod. Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, man.
If y'all can, click that link and join us. Thanks, y'all.
See you on main stage. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Okay.
Thank you,
Alrighty,
Grace.
bye.
Thank you.
Peace,